Look, we need to talk about Freddy's feet. Wait, stop. Don't click away. This isn't some weird kink thing. We need to talk about Freddy's feet from the game's Security Breach's more successful child, Ruin. There's been a lot of discourse in the FNAF fandom right now about why his foot says prototype, but I think that I finally have the answer. Do I have answers to anything else? No, but I do have a string of answers that relates to why his foot says prototype in the first place, despite not saying it in the first game. I've got a standing theory that I think puts the Fazpaw right on the money. I want to preface this with something relatively large. I know a lot of people have a lot of varying ideas about this game and about the timeline. They've got a lot of varying theories, and warning, this theory is going to get pushback, probably from you watching this right now, especially since this theory more or less directly contradicts game theory's posted theory currently. So I'm probably going to get some hate for this. But I'm pretty certain in this theory. It's well researched, it's well looked into, and I've got a really good feeling about this one. So I do ask that you sit or stand or lay there and listen to this hot take. You ready? Let's go. So, in order to first understand why Freddy's foot says prototype, we need to go way back to the canon ending of Security Breach. That's the Princess Quest ending. If you want to know how that was determined, it's for a handful of reasons. First, the Princess Quest ending is the only 3-star ending from Security Breach, the Vanny mask is left behind at the end of this ending, and Freddy's head was taken with Gregory as he leaves the Pizzaplex. Additionally, there is a series of comic strips that are found through Ruin that indicates that the rest of the stories that are told as the game wraps up are completely fictional. Gregory made up the rest of the endings effectually. However, Freddy's head being taken with you is only partially important. The important thing that I want to point out about the Princess Quest ending is that Freddy's head is still active when removed from his body during this ending. In fact, he even speaks to Gregory from inside of the duffel bag. I want you to keep this in mind going forward. Freddy is still active and able to speak to Gregory, well, as much as a head can speak and talk, and you even see Gregory eating an ice pop at the end of the game next to Freddy's head with Vanessa. So with this being the canon ending, the Freddy who chases us also is headless, therefore, it's gotta be the same Freddy, right? 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 Well, all the other animatronics have suffered the same damage and ruin, with Monty missing his legs, Chica missing her beak, and Roxy missing her eyes. The only animatronic that ever even references the events of the previous game is my personal favorite animatronic, Roxanne Wolf, with her line, "Give me back my eyes," and her referencing Gregory. Well, even though the damage is the same across the board for the most part, there's a few key things that I want to point out off the bat. In order to reach the Princess Quest ending, there are a few key points that need to happen. You need to beat all 3 of the Princess Quest games, and this means that you need to venture into Roxy's salon to complete Princess Quest 1. Go to the West Arcade to complete Princess Quest 2, before you eventually go to the front door, select the Vanny option, and go into Vanny's lair and complete Princess Quest 3. In order to fulfill this condition, it means that you either needed to have defeat Monty or Chica before defeating Roxy, reaching 6 a.m., and finding the end of the game. The important thing to note is that the only thing that is not on a split path in all of Security Breach is defeating Roxy with that go-kart. So, canonically, you stole Roxy's eyes in the raceway, but it's questionable if you defeat both Chica and Monty. Well, it's a pretty easy check to see. You harvest body parts from them, so let's just see what Freddy has in Phaser Blast when we meet him. Short answer, he doesn't have the body parts. Long answer is it's more complicated than that. Roxy's eyes are still in Freddy's head after being taken by Gregory. Chica's voice box is found completing Chica's feeding frenzy, so nowhere even near Freddy or even adjacent to him. And for some reason, Monty's claws are just nowhere to be found. That's what you harvest from Monty. It's not even the legs, but it's kind of difficult to say where all of that is. Sure, you can find some stuff later in an AR section in the Monty catwalks, but that's not a pickup of his claws. Logic would state that the Monty claws would still be attached to Fredad's Fredad bod, but they just aren't. His legs were strung up in the hidden shrine in AR when we're hunted down by Stomach Mouth Freddy in the Phaser Blast chase scene. He doesn't sport any pieces of equipment that Gregory stole from the animatronic cast of Security Breach. That's strike 1, okay? Well, strike 2 is also pretty obvious. Freddy's foot says the word prototype on it. It is something distinctly lacking from the entirety of Security Breach. I know, before you hop down in my comment section and start getting all mad at me because matpat's the god of FNAF or this or that, generally, I tend to agree with Matt. I think he's a really smart guy, and I think he's done wonders and huge strides for the FNAF community and the FNAF lore. But I feel the need to address that I think he's actually incredibly wrong about Ruined Freddy. When something is so clearly telegraphed to an audience, playing a game, like where the game shows you prototype, and it effectively has a big red circle around it and arrows pointing to it, Steel Wool is trying to tell you something. They're trying to point you in the right direction, not just deceive you to be mean. Strike 3 is why Freddy disappears while the Vanny mask is on. A game theory posited that it's because Freddy was booted up in safe mode at the beginning of the game, but I think that the reason is actually quite different. I think it's because this Freddy is simply not our Freddy. I agree that he's not connected to this Vanny network, but I think that's because this is a prototype version of Freddy. He was never connected to the Vanny network. This is because the Princess Quest ending doesn't even result in the destruction of the Pizzaplex. It just results in Gregory, Freddy, and Vanessa just dipping out of there. The Pizzaplex is still active and working at the end of the Princess Quest ending. However, like I said, they're missing their rock star, their head of security, and their favorite, possibly a robot boy. This means that the Pizzaplex needed to replace some of their animatronics, temporarily. Well, with Bonnie more or less dead and Roxy, Chica, and Monty all incapacitated, the Pizzaplex could only hope to complete so much. So they pulled their spare Freddy casing out of storage, slapped it on an endo, and called it a day. With everyone else on vacation or whatever they wanted to call it, the Pizzaplex staff had to improvise to make sure that their whole entire roster of animatronics wasn't just down. Freddy's the mascot after all, he's the most important one, and to get him going and him being headless wouldn't exactly be two things that mesh super well together. Look, between the lack of claws, the head, the new colored president in his chest cavity, and the foot saying prototype, and him not even showing up when you put the Vanny mask on, I think the timeline went a little something like this. Gregory, Vanny, and Fred Head escaped the Pizzaplex, doors opened at 6 a.m. the next morning, and the staff panicked, snagged a prototype Freddy out of storage, and at some point in between, the Pizzaplex is almost completely destroyed, and the animatronics that have been shoved into storage because of all of their damages get taken out. Was this due to Gregory and Freddy? Was this due to the Blob because they're still around the Pizzaplex apparently? Was this because of the Mimic? Because why not? Not a question that I'm aiming to answer at this moment. But look, in conclusion, Freddy just ain't Fredad. I'm pretty certain in this timeline that I've tossed together. It's a little bit vague and it's a little bit gray, but it makes the most sense from what I can tell. I haven't interacted a lot with the FNAF fandom since the release of Ruin, since it just felt very uncomfy and very toxic, but I haven't seen this narrative flowing around anywhere. If you have, let me know down in the comments, and I'd love to discuss it more. I had to cut a couple of things for time, but I basically said everything that I've wanted to say. Thank you so much for sticking around through this incredibly crazy theory, and if you want to hear more of my hot takes about some other indie horror darlings that you're gonna love, you better stick around and subscribe so that way in October you can hear my entire breakdown of all of mascot horror as a genre. I hope you're excited for it. I'll see you next time. Au revoir.